Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Lyssa. Welcome to Two Geek Girls on Sunday. Yay.
Yep.
I think we are post, of course, the big show we are post is Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes, and I watched that this morning.
Yes, I knew you were like, I finally got to watch it. I finally got to sit down and see it.
I was like, we're probably going to talk about this today. I should probably watch this episode.
I would certainly like to hear people's thoughts. I would certainly, at everybody in the comment section, everyone kind enough to join us. I certainly like to know what Lyssa thought about it since it's fresh in her mind. I'm just going to start off by saying I thoroughly enjoyed it and I'm excited.
Yes, I enjoyed it as well. I also, funny enough, saw a TikTok this morning that said, we almost have the full version of the Walmart Avengers now.
That yes, that's a good way to,
because we had the Asgardians doing the play.
Yep.
In Thor Ragnarok.
Yep.
So there's that, and then the Captain America one, and then there was one other that I can't think of right now. But yeah, we almost have the full version of the Walmart Avengers, the Great Value Avengers. The great,
yeah. The ones you ordered from Wish when you thought you were getting them from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So spoiler alert is in effect if you haven't seen the first episode, because we're probably going to slip up and say more than we always intend to, and that's just what happens. But again, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Anybody out there who got a chance to see it, thank you, Donnie, for joining us. I'm glad you're enjoying it as well. Let's see, we've got William. Thank you. Let's see. So yeah, for me, I'm thoroughly. First of all, I'm struck by how much I'm enjoying. So many of the actors are really getting to show the real reasons they were cast.
Yeah.
In these roles. It's not just about their great looks or the chemistry of the other cast members or anything else. It is
their acting chops.
It's their acting chops. They have been playing these characters for quite a long time. If we actually start to think about how old we are now, and when all these movies started, they've been playing these characters for a very long time. And it is clear whether everything was ironed out from the beginning, as clear as day as we're starting to see it for each phase, or they at least were incredibly ambitious as they're casting these people. And this would explain a lot more about what happened with Terrence Howard and Ed Norton. Certainly Banner before that. That would explain a lot more of what was happening there, if the picture was getting bigger or more ambitious, or they understood how ambitious they wanted to be. There you go.
Well, there's that, and also the fact that if you notice, those two movies that you brought up were pre-MCU as we know it.
Correct. So these decisions as they do this, while that last Hulk movie before Ruffalo is considered part of the MCU and canon according to Marvel.
But it's also
you can also toss it aside. You don't have to watch it for anything else. It's not a part of anything else in any important way, but it is still technically considered on paper a part of all of that, as much as Iron Man is.
Yes.
This according to them, even though they don't want to admit that.
Technically yes, but also I feel like most of the all of the movies that they didn't have a hand with actually like Disney didn't have a hand with influencing really. They unless they cherry pick. It is canon, but it's not really it's kind of
again. It's a movie fudgy that they've really set aside, and clearly things changed since they started.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, in that Hulk movie, and particular, actually any of the Hulk movies,
Mhm.
are universal.
No, it is an MCU movie. It is a completely exactly the same as Iron Man MCU movie. They just like to act like it isn't. For obvious, and again, I'm saying what's on paper because
Well, I
it's
mean,
one movie that we
it's
need.
set up the beginning, like the end credit scene
Mm-hmm.
set up the potential for the Avengers. So yes, technically,
That
but
was
they, like you said,
certainly the plan. Yeah. I mean, the
good baby.
there's the baby. We say hi to Sadie.
Hi,
We
Miss
say hi to
Sadie.
Sadie. Sadie needs a bath. You smell like a dog. Oh goodness gracious.
Does she still have puppy breath?
It's moving into away from skunk into more of the coffee breath.
Ah,
So we're moving into that
away
phase.
from milk breath. Milk breath.
From well, yeah, and they remember these ones we got at 3 weeks, so there was no milk from 3 weeks on. It was
Yeah.
all gruel. But puppy breath is puppy breath is puppy breath. It's very distinct, and it's amazing how much you. Oh yeah, the puppy yawns, and you're like. Puppy breath, because someday you're not going to have it and you miss it. It's
Yep.
one of the strongest smells in the world, but when it's gone, you miss it. So,
Yeah.
and it is the breath of a healthy puppy. That's the irony
Yes.
of it. The worse it is, the healthier the puppy is. But she, as you can see, she sleeps. She's a sleeper. She's a cuddler. We're going through a lot of changes. We're hitting close to 10 weeks now. So, yeah. But yeah, anyway, it's yeah, with the Avengers and everything else coming forward, um I so yes, with Falcon and Winter Soldier, um as much as I'm not surprised by what's going on, I'm surprised. I don't know the other word to use instead of surprised. I expect the quality. I
Yes.
expected these background stories. I expected the layers. I expected all the details. They did make it clear to really think about this as a long movie. Don't think of it as a regular TV show. It's certainly not
Yeah.
Agents of Shield or anything like that. But is it just that I'm enjoying it so much because it's still enough to keep my? I don't know. It's just I'm loving it. I'm love the quality and no, even the little detail about showing that Bucky can't get drunk. When we heard from Steve that he couldn't get drunk because of the serum, and it ups it, makes your metabolism faster. Like
Well, yeah, because Bucky also got
he got a
the
bunch of
Hydra equivalent of it.
right, right. So all these little details, like, wow, you can drink. It's like, yeah, and he can't
Yeah,
get drunk
yeah.
no matter how much he wants. Um,
Well, and them portraying the extreme amount of PTSD that he has.
yes, and going through the therapy of it, that's a great way to show it. It's a great way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um, and
making
I mean, with the Wakanda bits with the Avengers stuff that
Mhm.
we saw, like you kind of got the beginning of his redemption in that way.
Yes.
But I'm glad that they are showing that he does still have a long way to go. That him going to Wakanda, while that was a little bit of reprieve,
Yes.
He's clearly not fine, and you wouldn't be. I mean,
No.
he had
This is gonna
90 years as basically
memory.
a
Puppet.
robot for
Yeah.
Hydra.
Yep.
Um,
This is
and that is going to weigh on your psyche so hard.
it's a very long, hard journey. And this wonderful balance that we understand of how receptive he is to certain things and how he isn't is showing, this demonstration that this character right now is still on the fence.
Well, there's that, and also so it's in kind of stark contrast to Captain America. So when Captain America came out from the ice,
Right.
he Now, there were things here and there that he doesn't quite understand, but he integrated into society really well, considering that there was like, what, 50 plus years from when he went in the ice? Because I don't remember exactly what year he was supposed to have been unearthed.
It is about, yes. And he
50,
but he was also
50, 60 years-ish.
hailed as a hero when he woke up.
Yeah,
surrounded
exactly.
by people who admired him.
Whereas Bucky, he is like just really starting to gain control of his faculties because he's finally been weaned off the majority, if not all, of Hydra's brainwashing and chemicals that they put in his body, other than obviously the super serum.
And processing so much.
Yeah.
Like these layers that he has to have buried. This is a lot. And demonstrating that he,
and this is another thing.
Yes.
The mind wipes.
Right. One more thing to do. These layers that he has to deal with. That and we understand Steve's feelings for Bucky. We understand. Again, leading into Civil War, these are all things that we understand. This is clearly a character that, one, we're meant to sympathize with, and two, there's a lot of reasons we should. It's not that we don't understand other viewpoints, and it's not that we don't sympathize with the victims.
Exactly.
But and for a lot of people who have been who have had to come to terms with one lifestyle and moving into another, you can also look at this as moving from a front lines life to trying to build a civilian life. There is a point where, as the therapist is pushing him harder, like, are you receptive to what you're going to need to do? Are you pushing back at me from stubbornness, for these needs of revenge? Because I'm trying to, when I say on the fence, he's on the fence of continuing to push forward or giving up. Not backsliding, just giving up. And it's
another
not like
thing is that the one person that would be his support system during all this, so Captain America, Steve, he's no longer in his life. So not only has he been thrust into an entirely new situation after extreme amounts of trauma, the one person that was his lifeline and the person that would help him start integrating into society is no longer accessible.
This was also probably the person who, in many ways, whose forgiveness and acceptance mattered more than anybody else's. That would be that guiding light as he tried to seek forgiveness for himself and possibly forgiveness from the families of the victims and everything that he's done. This was that one person. So we understand this is a great setup for why it feels like backsliding, but it's really him having to adapt once again to a big change.
Exactly. And it's really not backsliding as so much as, it's processing trauma.
Right. Good days
because
and bad
with processing trauma, even if you don't have nearly as much trauma, there can be things that trigger a response. Even if you just have the mildest case of PTSD.
Right, with the different levels that they would clinically classify.
You still have good days, you still have bad days, and there are things that are going to trigger you more than others.
Right.
You have to get through those hoops to move forward and heal. But especially Bucky, when he's had that much happen to him for such a long time, and he doesn't have that support system yet.
It speaks to the layered and strong character that they're building him up to be.
Yes.
And that was something that, this is all the reason, and this is the same with whether he remains Falcon or we have been introduced to the next Falcon, as we've been introduced to the next Captain America. So, spoiler. So we, as we're being introduced to this, there's certainly allowing the characters to demonstrate why their stories are going to carry so much weight, why these are real heroes. These are the standouts in this moment. And this has been years in the making. So again, not surprised by what I'm seeing. Nothing but excited. Even the details in the museum, the Captain America display at the Smithsonian that they were going through, you can see in the writing that they were very careful about. There's no mention of the fact that the Avengers traveled through time. And the Avengers saved the day is basically what it says. That's basically how it says. We're not going into
the details of it. People wouldn't necessarily know either, because the Avengers could have just been like, "Yeah, we did the thing.
We did the thing." Well, and it's somebody knows. It's written down somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere in Sword's archives, most likely.
Yeah,
but like
no
for
details
press
on
purposes, they're not going to fucking tell the world that, oh, hey, you know those Pym particles we've talked about in the past? Yeah, we can time travel with them.
Yeah, we're not advertising that one quite yet.
Like we're not gonna, because think about how dangerous that is potentially. If that technology, that idea gets in the wrong person's hands. Like if Hydra got a hold of that.
Right. But you already have conspiracy theories popping up too, because they're tying in, whether we agree with it or not, the fact that Steve went back and it went through time again. So they mentioned there's all these crazy conspiracy theories about Captain America. We heard his friend mention while they were talking about the flag. But remind me of the terrorist group's name. The flag. Somebody in the comment section will know. It just left my mind. The terrorist group was, and it's I know
what you're talking about. I can't think of the name.
This was the terrorist group that we've been hinted at. The fact that they were in Switzerland, it was hinted at that this would be the terrorist group with the enhanced beings in it that would become the focus here. So that's awesome. But while they were talking about that, he mentioned there's already conspiracy theories popping up about Steve. Because obviously in their world, people would have spotted him over the years as he went back and lived again. So probably trying not to encourage any more conspiracy theories than necessary. Totally understand. They changed Bucky's bio from the previous movies. They changed his bio to show that he had been an agent of Hydra and is now not an agent of Hydra, but his current status is hidden. He still seems, even though his picture is in the Smithsonian, he does seem to be hiding his identity, certainly more than Flag Smashers. Thank you. The Flag Smashers. Certainly does seem to be hiding his identity. He has good reason for that too, because he's hunting down a ton of people. I recognize several of the characters from the list, including ones that had that were literally the ones physically responsible for much of his brainwashing. They were the one in the room, and then several other fringe that in the list. It would make sense he would have encountered over time, especially in Russia. These were some of these characters, so I recognize some of the names that were on his hit list. So that's going to be interesting.
Now, for me, like I don't know anything about the Flag Smashers. However, like because we did see the augmented humans, I'm wondering if these people are extensions of Hydra's Winter Soldier program.
So it could be that they're setting it up to be related to it or an extension of it. The Flag Smashers have their own history in the comic books, and everything does weave in and out, which is how all the characters end up together. So I am interested to see how they're going to spell out this one. The tie to Switzerland is important. That does have to do with a very specific character. But again, these are all just theories that I'm spouting at this point. Because I could be looking too deep into it. I could be missing something big. And I'm certainly forgetting a lot of details because it's been quite some time since I read some of these storylines. But the fact, yes, the fact that they're enhanced could certainly be a storyline that they decided to go forward with. They've already made it clear that Hydra is still certainly a part of forefront of Bucky's mind.
Oh yeah, there's no way they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
In fact, they should be at the forefront of everyone's mind. Like, even if you just totally ignore the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, which, you technically should because it's not canon. There was... even just in, like, the MCU itself, like, the whole, like, bit about Hydra taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. and this, that, next thing, like, that was a huge plot line.
Yes.
Like, obviously, like, it's Hydra. You cut off one head and two more grow, is the entire point of the agency.
Yes.
So, like, them releasing all of the information on Hydra is certainly not going to stop them. They're just going to dig further underground to be hidden better.
Well, we don't know. Again, we don't know how many heads there already are. That's the whole fear of it. This is an organization that's clearly been around for a very, very long time, and all of it is about giving readers and viewers confidence in why in that world these heroes are necessary and these organizations are necessary. It's to subvert any questions about that. You have the enemy, here's the hero, and we need to show you consistently how terrifying the enemy is. And Hydra certainly is the epitome of that. For this. Again, that wonderful moment of Captain America leaning over and going, "Hail Hydra,"
Hydra.
Or like
that was
worth
that
it.
was the best way they could have done that fan service.
Because
it made perfect sense. It was the perfect moment, and then they just moved on. It worked.
All we needed. That's all we needed.
That's all we needed. And then the fight with himself and going, "That is America's ass." That was a perfect comedic moment.
That's it. It was a great. Yes, it was a very good S.
He's like, "Oh yeah, that's what that looks like when it's not like in a mirror."
In a mirror. All right, not bad. Feel better about myself today. Not that he should feel bad, but itself, that was pretty good. I do. I don't know about anyone else, but I find myself, because it's what normally happens when we watch a movie and we watch the end of a series of movies, I'm still reacting to the fact that we're picking up where the end of Endgame left off.
Yeah,
we're still it's like it's not a reboot or it's not or a sequel or anything that's you know what I mean, that's happened 10 years later. No, this was always the plan. Y'all went through all of that. This has never been done before. This is still, it's like we like to compare it to other stuff, but this has never been done before. And so I find myself, at least I've never been through anything like this before, where I came to the end of something and I have to remember that it's not the end, that we're still world building, where people have just gone through this.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it certainly isn't the first time that the concept has been used in media. However, it is the first time on this massive of a scale.
Exactly. Yeah.
That it has been done.
And crossing over between TV and movies so fluidly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously, like, Star Wars, for example, has been doing this with moderate amounts of success here and there for the past few decades.
Yes, especially when we think about how good the TV shows have been, how good the animated shows have been. Yes.
It kind of just depends on, like, what you're referring to and everything, because, like, obviously, like, the first iteration of the Clone Wars is not considered canon.
Right.
And it never was, even by Lucas himself.
Right.
But the 3D Clone Wars series is. And there have been like other things, like there was like an Ewok series. There was like one in like the 70s or 80s that focused on C-3PO and R2-D2 and following them around. And
I remember. I'm trying to remember for the life of me. There was a small movie, I think, aired on TV or went straight. I don't know if it was ever in theaters, but it was clearly a Star Wars universe and involved a couple of kids.
It's the Ewok Adventures.
Is that the one with the rocks? They have with the rocks. There was like this rock that cracked open. It had something in it, or it was spinning, or something. It was weird.
I think so. It's been forever since I've seen it, but you say a couple of kids, and the first thing that comes to mind is the Ewok Adventures.
Right. And so these splinter off part of it, yes. Obviously, things have continued for decades. There are storylines and worlds that have continued to be in media for decades.
But the varying success of those it's not even comparable to the MCU. The MCU has done it so well, so masterfully, and continues to try to honor the source material it comes from.
Right.
Is the thing. Because obviously, like, Star Wars doesn't have source material that it can come from.
No. Not like we think of it like that. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you want to call 4, 5, and 6 source material. No.
Well, there were comic books even prior to like Disney getting a hold of it that are considered canon, and things like that like continued on with the stories, and so like you did technically have source material that shows and whatnot could draw on, but you really had to cherry pick it.
This is like creating. I mean, it's creating so much of its own media. Yes. Is what this feels like with the MCU. Because I still walked out of Endgame reacting as if that was the end, even knowing that it wasn't. I don't know why that. I'm trying to say it in a way to say that I have to keep remembering. It was
the end of an era, and we lost 2 of the main Avengers, along with actually 3 of the main Avengers, along with Gamora.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Kind
Gamora
of.
was the weird one that is like, yes, she did die, but did she really? Because we also got the alternate universes Gamora.
Which, yes, and doesn't feel like a throwaway. Like, they did show how that, like, yes, okay, that somebody was bound to come back. Somebody was bound to be seen again as we're going through time. So I didn't feel weird about the fact that Gamora came back. They certainly played it accurately.
Yeah.
But we lost and then,
we
Loki.
lost Black Widow, we lost Loki, we lost Tony, we lost Steve. There were a lot of big people that we lost from the Avengers. And because it was the end of that cycle of the MCU, and they built it up to be such a big thing because of Infinity War, and then Endgame itself was 3 hours.
Yeah.
In some change.
Yeah.
Like somewhere between 3 and 4 hours.
Yep.
And also just like psychologically speaking, calling it Endgame as well.
Yes.
Like, you add all of these factors together.
Right. And these aren't like weird spin-offs. That's the other thing I have to keep reminding myself about. Like, it. I've read it on paper. I knew what they were doing. It's not like this is news to me. But I still have to keep reminding myself, this is not a spin-off. It's the next part. It's like, no. We're good. So yeah, I find myself having to keep remembering that as I'm watching this. That's why the details are so important. And remembering WandaVision did a great job of showing us what it was like for one person to come back and everything be completely different in a way that really struck a chord.
That's another one that we lost but didn't quite lose. Vision.
Yeah. Still a devastating loss. Still a lot to get through, even though there is a Vision.
Yeah.
There now.
So like there was a lot to process. There's a lot to go through and try to think about and mull over from Endgame going forward.
Right. And that as we go through these details, I'm really, really, really happy that they have created characters that can carry off the next chapter. I mean, you killed Ned Stark, and the show is still going on.
Yeah.
Don't do the ending. Just do better with hopefully a better finale. Just saying. But other than that, yes, you killed the main character from the entire first season, Tony Stark, and the show is still going on. So.
Well, and the thing is,
Bravo.
like with the with the MCU, but like the Marvel comics, these mantles get passed down, and that's what we're seeing with Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
It's ultimately going to be who's worthy of being the next Captain America.
And they've, to their credit, created in this new media characters that can carry it just as well.
Yeah.
So it creates a question. The fact that we actually don't know exactly what direction they're going in, because there are several directions that would work.
There's that, and also it brings up the question, like, as Sam was saying, Captain America was about who was Captain America. It wasn't just that this is a symbol, because originally that symbol started off as a joke, as buy war bonds. It was Steve's actions.
Steve made Captain America.
That made Captain America a symbol.
Right. Bigger than anything they could have imagined, bigger than what they originally intended. And there's I don't know if it's not fair to call it hero worship, but that is a hard place to turn your mind from. And this is why another Captain America who didn't even know Steve becoming existing is
problematic.
Yeah. That right there. Now, it's like, okay, so you're doing the symbol thing again. Okay.
I mean, it's in some ways you could also argue that it's symbolic of how Americans view patriotism too. It could be social commentary as well on someone's part.
Yes.
Hey, look at the shiny bauble. We're patriots now, right?
Yes, and if you don't support this, you're not a patriot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in Disney, the MCU has been smart about what social commentary they kind of just sneak in there. Like, you actually have to sit and think about it, because Disney is all about towing that line.
Well, yes, and as he had pointed out, as Sam had pointed out, this is that point. What's the point of patriotism if it's only symbolic?
Yeah.
And that's to his credit, and to the point that he's making, that Steve is Captain America. This is not a thing that you can just pass along.
Yeah.
But of course, everyone around him is trying to go, but you're you, and you get that.
Yeah.
Like, but we know you feel that way. That's the point. So it's certainly, that was a great way to wrap up the first episode.
It was. Especially, can you give a shout out to the Rockdale boys? Hello, Rockdale boys.
Hello, Rockdale boys.
I'm wondering if Kang the Conqueror will be the next big baddie. I think I've seen people speculating that might be the case.
Yes, I saw that mentioned too.
Steve was who Captain America would be before he took the super soldier serum. Yes.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah,
Thank
and that's why they chose Steve as Captain America to begin with. Now,
yes.
people along the way used him incorrectly, and that's why he became kind of a laughing stock in the beginning, because they thought he didn't have the mental fortitude to go out on the front lines.
Yes, and this is again why it was clearly such a good part of storytelling for the first Avenger to, as much as it seemed like the obvious choice, to show us the person who ultimately made the decision about who was going to be given the serum was exactly the right person to decide who was going to be given the serum.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you end up with Hydra. No offense to Bucky. No offense to Bucky.
I mean,
he didn't deserve the serum. He just didn't deserve the brainwashing in Hydra.
Bucky was worthy of getting the serum, but how he was given it was problematic.
Screw Hydra. Number one mafia in England, Manchester. Really. But yeah. What are we speculating? Are we speculating next? Are we speculating what's the next chapter? What's the next big reveal you think might be coming?
I mean, I think since at the very end of the episode they mentioned the flag people.
Yeah.
Where was their name again?
We're gonna get a better clue about who that is.
Yes, I think since where did they go? Where is that friggin' comment? I'm trying to remember their name and I'm horrible with names.
Flag Smashers.
Flag Smashers.
So next episode will be more details about the Flag Smashers.
Yes, I think we're going to get more details on Flag Smashers. I think we're going to likely have Sam and Bucky meet up here soon because of that.
And seeking, and I'm hoping to get the answers on who's behind, like who's really behind the new Captain America.
Yeah. And my thought is that they're probably going to do the conspiracy theory thing. And the person that they chose to take over the mantle of Captain America is going to be someone from the Flag Smashers.
Yeah. Or the person behind them is going to be somebody else involved with the Flag Smashers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Those are the two biggest questions on my mind right now. So those are the ones I hope they begin to tackle that.
Thank you, Dylan. I have new shiny glasses coming soon because these are being held together by super glue in true geek fashion.
Right.
But
they look cute.
Yeah.
They're there.
But yeah, I think we're gonna get those things happening. I think Bucky and Sam are going to start maybe a little bit of friendly rivalry about who should take over the mantle of Captain America.
Yep.
Because of the fact that this person, this imposter, has now taken on the mantle of Captain America, who is not worthy of it. As we don't know a damn thing about this person.
No. So for me, yes, we know. We certainly, it's the motivation. Again, for a lot of this, that's like there's a lot of reveals that we kind of saw coming. There's certainly things looking back in the episode they set up for what was coming next. So it now becomes the motivation part. Like, why? What are we thinking? What's the next piece of this? But yeah. Yep. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am as well. I think they've set up they've set this up going forward to be a really good series. Obviously, like this episode was going to be a little bit slower, just because it is a first episode. First episodes, you're trying to get introductions out of the way. You're trying to introduce basically the mini universe within the universe as to what's happening. Because while the MCU, obviously, this isn't like technically a bubble. It's not outside of the events of the MCU. It's a bubble in that, like, you kind of have to introduce new events, especially in the beginning, and plant those seeds to get everything started.
And they certainly did it in like the most devastating, betrayal, insulting manner. Like, he donated the shield to you guys and you gave it to some dick. Like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also, like, technically, couldn't he be like, no, I gave it to you on loan. You can't just give that out. That's my property.
You would hope. You would think so. But yeah, I'm loving the hate for this poor actor that's coming out right now. I don't know, like, you're gonna be the most hated person in America after this show airs, just so you know. What is that actor's name? Let's see. Ow, dude.
And Dylan Smith, shout out to Barry Gibbons. He's your biggest fan, girls. And yes, also for those in the chat, please remember to be respectful. Both Crysstal and myself are in relationships. We appreciate compliments, but don't start getting pushy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Or weird.
Yeah. Don't make it creepy.
Don't be creepy. Don't be creepy. How many times I gotta say it? Don't be creepy. Don't make it weird. You're making it weird. You took it too far. But of course. Let's see. There was one more thing. I love a little bit of that little Easter egg in there. Sam making it clear that the Avengers don't really get paid. How sad is that? He's all like, well, didn't Tony Stark just give you something? Didn't you just have this? Yep. So yeah, we had that part in there too. The financial reality of the real world. You're gone for again, setting up that world building. You're gone for 5 years, and your family was kind of dependent on you. You were one of the people. Your whole family has moved on. That's a paycheck they didn't have. He's a recognizable superhero, and it's not like he was on the payroll. They were probably getting something, a stipend, while they were in training, or they're certainly given a place to live. And and food and stuff, but it's like, okay, you're a contract worker, you're an associate.
I literally just blocked someone. I 2 seconds before I said, don't make it fucking creepy.
He did something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't. When I say don't make it creepy, I had already put someone in timeout for the same thing. People in the chat that are mods reiterated everything. And I said something on stream. I will block people. I will put them in timeout. I'm serious about this, guys.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And she has the right to do whatever she wants with it.
So. Hi, producer here.
Yeah. Yeah. That is all. Yep.
Sorry, I'm not in the mood for that kind of bullshit today.
No.
Anyways,
Power is all yours, girl.
Banhammer.
Banhammer. Go the Banhammer. Like, nope. I always think of that as that video game, Whack-A-Mole.
Yes.
Like, no. Just no.
Warnings were given. Warnings were not heeded.
Warnings were not heeded. Hi, I'm sorry.
Hey, puff puff. But yeah, I think going forward, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to be really well done. Obviously, it's going to be in a different vein than what WandaVision was. But if WandaVision is any indication of the quality that we can expect out of this show, then we are going to have something amazing.
It is wonderful to go into the show honestly expecting it to be good and still being pleasantly surprised.
Yes. By
how good. And we always want to give out a shout out to hard work and talent.
Exactly.
And that we're not coming into this trying to nitpick about weird geeky stuff. We want to acknowledge all of the clear hard work layers and everything else that's in there. That's why I like mentioning all the details that they're putting in, and they're making them key plot points because that makes sense. Like they've really thought about these characters.
Yes. And also the fact that they brought up the banks for the people who got lost to the blip.
Yeah. I mean, it was one thing to throw the world into chaos and take a couple billion people away.
Yeah.
Then you threw it into chaos again by bringing them back. Yes, we wanted them back. Clearly, people wanted them back, but 5 years is a very long time. And there's a practical side to it to suddenly have the population double again.
Yes.
In a world that had adapted to it being in half. And this very rightfully so is going to be another key part. So they've shown us with a frontline character what has happened to his family and the practical side of it. We're going to see that everywhere around here. So as to your point with the patriotism and having Captain America as a symbol again, these are all going to be compounding problems, because if we suddenly have a good percentage of the population that feels like it's feast or famine and nothing else for these reasons, these symbols of patriotism becomes a form of idolatry, because it gives people kind of a rallying point at a very desperate point in their life, which is something we can relate to in this country.
Well, and like you said, to the point of the feast or famine, like for 5 years, they've been growing enough food for half of the population.
Yeah, that. Food, resources, finances.
Yeah, like the finances, like obviously like the finances in the financial institutions, that actually for 5 years would have been amazing for these financial institutions. They'd be like, yes, like, yeah, we've now got all this income technically that is just open to us now.
If for family members were left behind, they had this. There was probably a lot of sorting out to do. And everyone's going to be kind of individual and how that impacted them, depending on who you lost. You're also dealing with, in some cases, losing half of your workforce, losing half of the income in your house at a time when there were still enough people at a financial institution to make decisions that would have been very selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge upset, and it's got to be interesting to imagine what would happen. I can only imagine the consultations I would try to, the consultants I would try to get a hold of, like an economic expert, a farming expert, like a social expert, bringing people in and saying, so we take half the population away for 5 years and then we bring them back. What are our top 10 pros and our top 10 cons? Like, go.
Well,
yeah.
In regards to like the agricultural side, for example, you could in theory be like, hey, let's save up enough seeds during this time to, if people do return, we have enough seeds in storage that we can actually overproduce.
I would, yes. And there's a huge practical side, and I think there would have been people who did that, whose emotional In some cases, it would have been a very practical side. Maybe they were in a good position to be pretty level-headed. It didn't devastate them as much. Maybe it was how people dealt with it by continuing for 5 years to have the exact same fervor of people coming back. But for most people, they would have moved on. They would
after the first few years.
They would have given up.
Yeah.
And now what? So again, this is that emotional turmoil that we see between Sam and his sister. There's just things she doesn't want to hear right now. There's things she doesn't want to talk about this right now. You know, she knows what he's going to say. She knows what he's trying to do. And she's like, it doesn't work like that. You don't understand. You can't just come back here and act like you can fix everything.
Yeah. It is going to be an issue with the banks that, you know, you were, for all intents and purposes, fucking dead last week.
Yeah. Just 5 years of not being around, and then the bank's saying, well, we have 5 years of inactivity for you. And they're like, yeah, and it's not like you don't know where I was. Yeah,
all of the people that were part of the blip, I feel like these financial institutions should have, you know, been planning for the possibility, have a plan B set in place for, you know, if this does happen, we have a backup plan, because there's going to be people who are coming back after 5 years out of fucking nowhere that it's not guaranteed that even their apartment is still there, or that someone hasn't moved into their apartment.
Yep. We saw areas were run down. We saw things were abandoned. We saw it wasn't on anybody's radar there were areas clearly that stuck in limbo.
Yeah.
Just doing the best they could on a daily basis, and other areas that moved on better, and other areas that were clearly preparing. So I think to that, we're going to see some people who prepared, who were better equipped. And we're going to see people that are, as we're seeing from some of them, they are not in a place to even readjust the course of their life to this right now. They're not there, for a multitude of reasons. And that's going to be an interesting, this Falcon and Winter Soldier specifically, I feel, is going to be a great lead into so much more layers of problems that we're going to see. That's it's going to have a lot to do with, again, symbols, and that's a key point for politics. That's a key point for Hydra. That's a key point for these people with horrible intentions and agendas to take advantage of. That's what they're going to see, and that's what they're going to act on.
Yeah. And that's definitely going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, in WandaVision, we had Monica, and she was also a victim of the blip.
Yep. She's one that. Yep.
Interestingly enough, the two parallels in these two series that they just came out with are the people that they're focusing on from the blip are persons of color. And how that would substantially impact their lives more,
right?
Potentially, because of the way institutions already discriminate without having 5 years of someone just being nowhere.
Yes. For Monica Rambeau, her setup, I do feel, is a bit different from Sam's and his family's.
Yes.
But as we can see, Sam and his family have probably lived in a neighborhood or convergent to a neighborhood that was possibly redlined for several generations, that has been hindered, has a marginalized population. This is going to affect them differently, as his sister said. One, because of her experience over the past 5 years of how things have changed, economically speaking, and then certainly her perspective on it's not a bank we can get anything from. We can't do another loan. That just doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
It's not the same for us. This would certainly compound the problem.
And
Yeah.
this is a good point. How many villains and evil organizations are going to be hitting the road running after the snap undo? They had to lose members and leaders. Well, here's my thing. Once the snap happened, though, someone would have stepped in.
Power vacuum.
There's a power vacuum there now. Someone would have
Mm-hmm.
stepped up. They would have stepped in and taken that place. Right. And how willing are they to give up that power when these people return?
Because they've had 5 years to make it their organization, just like a lot of companies. I mean, everyone's
that would
going
cause
to
all
have
sorts of chaos.
Yeah, and their organization, yes.
And this doesn't even just apply to evil organizations, as we saw in WandaVision.
Yeah,
with Sword, there was a power vacuum that occurred. Now, obviously, like Monica's mother, the reason for the power vacuum was slightly different because she passed away from cancer after the snap happened.
Right. And Monica, who had probably been with her mother on that journey through that company for so long, was not there to see what was happening or oversee in any way she could have. We don't know what the ultimate capacity she would have had after her mother's passing would have been, but yes, it's certainly different without her there.
Yes, Darren, we are aware that the focus was not on Monica. It did focus on Scarlet Witch and Vision. However,
Monica's the one
they are setting her up for the Captain Marvel movie.
She was a big part of it too. Yeah, Monica, this was about not only creating the Scarlet Witch, but creating the next iteration of what's going to happen with Monica, because she's going to become a big hero as well.
Yes.
We're not sure exactly what they're going to call her, but we certainly have an idea.
Yes, she's been called a couple things.
Right. And then again, I still say that her last costume looks exactly like a Captain Marvel costume. I'm just saying, doesn't mean it's going to be that. I'm just saying it could have just been a nod to that, and she could ultimately be a spectrum. But it could certainly be a nod to the fact that she's a part of that storyline as well.
I think the most likely name is going to be Spectrum.
Spectrum, yeah.
Just because that is the most recent iteration, and they don't have to go through complicated. Well, they changed their name. The MCU would think it's trashy, it's dirty, it's sloppy. Is the word I'm trying to think of.
Sloppy isn't. Yeah, that would be. Yeah.
Because like with Wanda, obviously like Wanda Maximoff has been her name the entire time. And they had never used Scarlet Witch up to this point.
Yes, this was the creation
which was
of the
different. That's entirely different than the, hey, there's multiple names this character goes by.
Right. And that, so they'll tie it up in a little bow and give a little nods to the other things, and as they do with the characters that are like this. They make a decision and that's what you get. I love that they have found I'm not surprised that they're bringing it. Clearly this was something they were going to cover. Clearly this is all part of the world that they've built, but I love the way that they've been doing it so far. I feel like they've been doing it the right way with the right characters, and we're just going to see more of that.
Yes.
And it's going to add these wonderful B stories to each part.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for that too. Yay. On that note, unfortunately, I do have to begin to head out.
Yes. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We hope you have a wonderful night, and we will see you next time.
Thank you guys for joining the conversation. Thank you, Lyssa, for everything tonight. We hope to see you guys again soon. We should be back on Thursday, just before the next episode. And maybe we'll talk about the Snyder Cut and the Gray cut that's also coming up in the DC universe. So there's that. Thank you again, guys. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.